Welcome everybody to another edition of the Hurry Up. I'm your host, Adam. Let's get into this. So the combine is starting. Rumors are flying. I love this time of year because we get to, it really is the start of the kickoff of the off season. Actually, it starts with the East West Shrine game and the Senior Bowl. And now here we are at the combine. And then, of course, there'll be Tag Day, which is the 5th. And then, free agency starts then. And then, of course, full blown draft stuff. But I want to get into some things. People are talking about Joe Schoen. And I want to say this. I am done with all the Daniel Jones excuses. I'm done with them. I'm done with them. I'm done. You have a chance to pick a quarterback, do it. And I don't want this to go anywhere, but from what I'm hearing, they like a quarterback. And it's time to take one. It's time to move on. But what I don't get, and this is for me, is what Joe Schoen can say about Evan Neal. He doesn't have the same gall to say about Daniel Jones. Oh, well, Evan Neal struggles, and we need to look in, and might need to bring in some competition for him. With Daniel Jones is he skirts the line. He's like, oh, we need to bring in somebody, but his injuries. Like, no one ever talks about his play. No one ever just dissects it. And when you do talk about his play, they reference the Minnesota game, they reference some Green Bay game, they reference, the Arizona second half. And it's like, but why don't you talk about the times that he is bad? Oh, but the O-line. Oh, but the receivers. Oh, but this. And to me, the excuses are the reason why I'm so angry at this kid. Because if we could just get together and say, oh, he stinks and move on, we can. But it's always an excuse with this guy. Yet with Justin Fields, now I'm not in the Bears fan base, they're having a similar discussion. Yet at the same time, they're willing to move on because one, they're the first overall pick, but two, they got it. They're like, okay, we're going to move on. We're not sure if he's the guy. Mac Jones, they're moving on from him as well. But yet and again, they're in a position to pick a quarterback, and I guess it's a little different. But what I don't get is like the excuses that we make for bad play, the excuses that overshadow bad play. It's okay to say, well, Evan Neal stinks, and yet he was injured, and there's many excuses I can make for Evan Neal. Flat out, he stunk when he played when he was on the field. And that's what needs to happen with Daniel Jones. We just need to be able to say, flat out, he's not good. He hasn't done anything in the NFL that's been good. And you can reference that 2022 season. That was not good football. Okay? It wasn't. And if you think that was good football, then you need to go rewatch football again because it wasn't good. It was hand-holding. It was average quarterback play. He still had the same depth of target. He still had the same, no explosive plays. Same things happened this year. He didn't change his stripes then, and he won't change his stripes now. There are games where guys are saying he's missing whole shots. Minnesota game, he should have 500 yards. Eli Manning plays that game. That's 500-yard game for Eli Manning. 500 yards. Patrick Mahomes plays that game. You're probably talking about, my God, what is he doing? 450 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like, that's how bad they were. But an average quarterback looks good against an average or below average defense, and we're blowing it because of that. And it just grinds me that every time we have a conversation about this, and it's the Giant fan base, and now it's starting to be the media, where it's, oh, well, it's the O-line, oh, well, the receivers, and then you go back and you watch the tape, and you're like, well, the receiver's open. The O-line held up. What's the excuse then? What's the excuse? Like, people are telling me, oh, I'm getting into an argument with Twitter where everyone's like, oh, well, this person's like, well, it's the O-line. I'm like, but what is the O-line in Seattle? Was the O-line his fault when he threw a pick six? He threw a pick six in Seattle. The line didn't do anything. He forced the play. He forced it, literally. And the cornerback you see is sitting on that force. When he had a guy, Darren Waller, wide open in the back of the end zone. But yet he forced the play to the DB. But am I going to blame the O-line again? Guy falls down, Paris Campbell. Somebody told me, oh, well, they're blaming Paris Campbell. Well, Daniel Jones still had time to make the play and still blew it. He could have taken the sack. He could have done anything smart. He overthrows the ball by a mile, and the guy picks it off. He also breaks away and then fumbles the ball in that game. So I had 3 turnovers in that game alone. But are we going to blame the offensive line for every bad play that he has? We're going to attribute to O-line? Yes, the O-line is bad, and it's hard to produce. But guys like Tyrod Taylor and Dan DeVito produce. And I don't care what anybody tells me. The line wasn't much better, okay? And I'm not trying to make this the line. This is not a line thing. I'm just don't understand why we can criticize one player out your mouth, and then the other side of your mouth give excuses. That doesn't fly with me. And I think that's what my frustration is with Daniel. That's why I think I have so much, angst against him, so to speak, is because he's a good guy, but if people would just flat out say he stinks and stop giving excuses, I would have less of an issue. Because there was no issue for Matthew Stafford when he was producing 4,000 yards with only Megatron and a bad team. No excuses. He just played. And you know what they were saying about the Lions? Let's get a defense. That's it. They weren't blaming the offensive line. They weren't making excuses for anything like that. They were, they understood that their defense wasn't good. Their offense wasn't good, but Matthew Stafford was. So much so that they traded him, and he goes on and wins the Super Bowl with a team that's better, that plays some defense. Not have I ever seen a guy like Daniel get so coddled by the media and by certain parts of the fan base where they just believe, and even the GMs in the front office where they're just like, oh, it's the O-line, it's not him. It's like, at what point, because we evaluate these players, the quarterback is a position. If they were positionless, like if this is the NBA, it's a little different. It might be a little different in how you deem it. Because not much is, more you can do individually in the NBA than you can in the NFL. It's a team sport. However, unlike in the NBA, there's you don't have the same functionality. Like the quarterback, yeah, he's part of it. He's the main part of it. But if he's failing, you can't just attribute it to, well, no, he failed. Because in the NBA, a guy's team may fail, but he'll drop 40. And you're like, oh, man, that's a winning effort. When have you seen a winning effort from Daniel by himself without the help of Saquon Barkley? And don't tell me the Colts game. Don't tell me, I'm talking about primetime football. I don't need you to beat bad teams. I need you to beat good teams. And so I just want to get that off my chest. I'm tired of the excuses. I'm tired of hearing about why the excuse on why his play is bad instead of just saying, hey, he was bad. We criticize Eli. Eli every week would tell you, I got to play better. I got to do this. I got to do that. Even the GM from Eli called him out and said, hey, he's a little skittish in the pocket. And that transformed Eli. Because once he heard that it was out there in the media and radio space and skittish and his own GM was following him, but guess what? He took more sacks. He took more hits in the pocket and wasn't turning the throw. Because remember with Eli in his first couple of years, if a blitz was coming, he would turn and throw the ball blindly like this. He would look and throw, but end up with his head like this. After that comment came out, he would just stare down his receiver and take the brunt of the blow. Sometimes it matters to criticize. And people say, oh, well, these guys are built for New York. What? The New York media who asks you about whether or not you eat pizza or cake or some shit in those commercials? Like, give me a break. You know why Daniel can't handle the media? Is because we got to hold him with kid gloves. That's the problem. And we can't criticize him in the public, or if any scrutiny comes afoot, we have to coddle this guy. Happened in Chicago. They turned off TVs because Mitchell Trubisky couldn't handle the criticism. Yet, here we are, same kind of deal, and we're still holding hands for a quarterback that is not really that good. And is probably not going to win a Super Bowl for you, and can't even beat the own quarterbacks in his division. Hell, barely even beat Kirk Cousins. If it wasn't for that atrocious defense, then we praise them all against the Colts. Team gave up. I'm just tired of the excuses. Joe Schoen, stop giving me the bullshit. Do your job. Find a way to get the next franchise quarterback. And I'm telling you right now, whomever that may be, whoever they find, the fans need to give it some time. If you are willing to give Daniel Jones 6 years and make every excuse under the book, you better give this new quarterback at least 3. Just saying. Because I know how it's going to go. Kid's going to get inserted halfway through the season, throw an interception. Like, look, Daniel wouldn't have done that. Daniel wouldn't have done that. See, they got the route there, but let it play out. We're so quick to judge, and we don't let, like, for example, Sam Howell, same thing. I said he was a good player. I was wrong. I also believe in circumstance. Now, I'm not going to give him the excuse for his bad play, but if he comes out and plays better because he's now evolved and gotten 3 years, we'll see. Guys evolve. 3 years is the barometer. That's it. A guy plays after 3 years. If you can't, then you move on. It's time. It's time to move on. And just quickly, if the Giants don't want to go quarterback in the draft, then here's a guy that we should go for. Tyler Huntley of the Ravens. Get a little competition, has a little bit of upside, is a little young, if it gets a little bit more of a dynamic runner than Daniel Jones, and that's a guy that I could say that if you don't want to draft a quarterback, I can get behind you trying to figure out if you can build that guy. It's a young guy. He's played some experience. He's played on a big-time program with the Ravens. He's been in big-time spots. So that's basically what I would say. If you're not going to go quarterback, because no other backup quarterback worth his weight in gold is coming here to be a bench player for a fucking booty-ass quarterback in Daniel Jones. But if you're going to go that route, at least give me a guy with upside. And I'm talking about Gardner Minshew or Sam Darnold. I'm talking about Tyler Huntley. Go get that guy. Because that guy knows that he's not going to play in front of Lamar Jackson. Comes to New York, at least he has a chance to start. And if he doesn't start, it's no big deal as well. But if he does, you might have a bridge guy that you can bring in and kind of augment that. There needs to be a solution here and not a problem. We have a problem and no solution. This has been another edition of the Hurry Up. I'm your host, Adam. Have a good one.